work on twin studies, so I have worked with thousands of twins. One of the largest twin studies in the world in the UK, for example. And from these twin studies, I think we can safely and definitively say that both genes and environments, mostly individual specific, and stochastic events in our lives affect all human characteristics. So this is just a snapshot of twin research that suggests that genes and environments affect, for example, cognitive abilities, academic achievement, personality, motivation, anxiety, even social mobility is influenced by both genes and environments. So if we take one human trait, for example, creativity, whatever we understand by it, and ask a question, well, does DNA have something to do with it? The answer is yes. Creativity, of course, is not uniquely human, but if we talk about human creativity specifically, research has shown that, for example, there are this one paper identified 200 unique genes that are not shared with Neanderthals or chimpanzees that are involved in networks that are linked to, for example, self-awareness, creativity, etc. So this is kind of species universals. But what about individual differences? Are individual differences in creativity linked to, for example, DNA? And the answer is yes. So twin studies have found that both genes and environment distinguish between people in their levels of creativity. This one study, this is a meta-analysis, and this is an interactive website where data from more than 14 million pairs of twins are presented. And these are always comparisons between genetically identical MZ and DZ twins. And an interesting finding here is that if you lump all human traits that have been studied together and ask a question, well, how heritable are they? Heritability is about 50%, which leaves the other 50% for environments and stochastic events. Of course, different traits have different heritability, and as I will mention later, heritability can change depending on environments. So DNA has been called the greatest text of all. And here, this is a brilliant exhibit in a science museum where this bookcase represents our DNA. That is, the whole of the bookcase sits in almost every cell of our body. These are huge volumes. Here I have one of them. So this is 1% of our DNA, 30 million nucleotides. So you can have a look at this book later. This is an incredible amount of material which we are currently decoding. So this is like discovering an ancient language and trying to understand what does it mean. And so every day a new polymorphism, a new genetic association is made between a particular DNA location and a particular human trait. And because human traits are pleiotropic, meaning one gene affects many different characteristics, you can also see, for example, a polymorphism that is linked to obsessive-compulsive disorder is also linked to many other conditions. This is a website freely available. So we are now we're living in the genomic era, where this is a UK government report, Genomics Beyond Health, where they estimate direct-to-consumer genetics testing to be rising by, to billions of dollars. And they describe genetics as it is already used in many industries, from sport to education to criminal justice. So we are in the era where there is no turning back. And in fact, a lot of direct-to-consumer companies are offering genetic testing where you can send your DNA off and receive some information about, for example, this company, ancestry, health, nutrition, sports, and even talent. Of course, all of this information is highly probabilistic and raises a lot of questions, about psychological effect of all of this information. So self-fulfilling and self-defeating prophecies, life design based on genetic information, etc. So it's been likened to, new prophecies, like this is a temple of Delphi. And so really genetics is becoming somewhat of an oracular oracular kind of service provision. But of course, genetic information will always be probabilistic. As we know, genes and environments interplay in complex ways. Heritability can be affected by the social setup and personal experiences. There are a lot of research in epigenetics. And for example, this latest study demonstrates that genetically identical mice raised in identical environments nevertheless diverge because of some kind of contingencies where they were at a particular time in a particular place just randomly, and that diverges behaviors. So I want to conclude. Just two quick points. You probably heard of these 3 horsemen of apocalypse, as they're called. So Copernicus dismantled our kind of idea that we are the masters of the universe and everything goes around us. Darwin, of course, dismantled our idea that we are somehow superior beings and linked us to the whole of the animal and plant kingdom. Freud kind of dismantle the idea that we are in conscious control at all times, and so a lot of our, self is unconscious to us. And what it brings me to this very important point at our development. As Sophocles beautifully puts in the mouth of a wise man in his book, we stand upon the perilous edge of knowing. So, but we must know. And so the knowledge is unstoppable, but what we're going to do with it is an open question. And from my experience, people know very little about genetics. Genomic literacy is very low. And people don't know what they're grappling. They're afraid of genes, but they are already using genetic information. So it's time to act, to kind of help ourselves to understand the opportunities and to mitigate the risks of living in the genomic era.